Another Saturday in the SEC has come and gone, and the narratives are writing themselves. Georgia looks like the team to beat in college football. Ole Miss feels like they could already reserve a spot in the postseason picture, and both UT programs feel like a threat to go ahead and hoist up a national title. Oh, by the way, Pavia Power is still alive and well in Nashville. Good for me. But I still have questions. Plenty that must be answered before the end of the Week 3 slate. So let's not waste any time. What's going on, SEC Unfiltered? It's Cole Thompson here. Make sure that you like the video, hit the ring notification down below, and of course, hit subscribe. This is your brand new home for all things SEC football. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. Make sure that also you're following me on Twitter at Mr. Cole Thompson. And to check out all of our great work, make sure that you visit SECUnfiltered.com. This episode is brought to you by Rhoback. Look good, feel good this upcoming fall on game days at Rhoback.com by using the promo code SECU for 20% off your very first purchase. 20% off with Rhoback.com, promo code SECU. Look good on game days this Saturday. So, Week 3 of college football, the SEC slate. I have heard people say this, and we are not going to be those people. It's a boring slate. Why are they going to Columbia, South Carolina? We're not you, Paul Feinbaum. We appreciate college football. We have waited for months for this game to be back on our television screens, and we're going to take every single win. Quick honorable mentions of questions I want answered. Arkansas, can you win in front of the home crowd by playing up to the competition? You played down to the competition last week. I don't even want to read the stats because of how sad it makes me, but you were the better team against Oklahoma State. They unfortunately hung around a little bit too close for comfort and got a win in double overtime. Well, UAB lost to Louisiana Monroe, and you had the better talent. Because playing in front of the home crowd gets you back on the right course to where maybe the season is far from lost. Texas, do you go ahead and pull a Week 3 again? So many of you probably forget that last year, Texas won by double digits on the road in a blue blood environment against a team that was supposed to be competing for a national championship. And then it was the fourth quarter, and Wyoming was still in the game before Texas decided to turn on the Jets and call mercy. Well, they just played against a blue blood team on the road with a double-digit victory against an opponent that did win the national championship, and here comes UTSA. From a skill set standpoint, Texas feels like the most complete team in the SEC, not named Georgia. From a actual persona standpoint, Texas in the past has found a way to Texas. Can they make sure that much like their departure from the Big 12, their Texasing days are left in the past and all it is a finite memory? Number 3, Peyton Thorne. How long is the leash? I don't want to go into too much detail. You've heard the rants. If you go watch the preview video against New Mexico, if you go watch the contender pretender video, you're going to see me rant about Peyton Thorne. But how long is the leash before we see Hank Brown? The bottom line is that you're doing no one any favors, Hugh Freeze, by holding out hope that things are going to turn the corner for Peyton Thorne. It's not happening anytime soon. And at some point, you have to get your backups in the game just in case they need to get equipped to playing with the first team offense. So what does the leash look like? How long is the leash for number 1? Is it 1 interception? Is it 1 fumble? Is it 1 turnover on downs? Whatever it is, Hugh Freeze has got to be ready to turn to Peyton Thorne or Holden Griner and say, guys, you're QB1. Strap on up and get ready to go work with this first team offense. Next one, Alabama. Depth purposes. Let's talk about this real fast. From a skill set standpoint, Alabama is one of the best teams in college football, top to bottom, with their first team offense. When you go to turn the backups, it is a black and blue TVMA put right in the corner of the television screen. Do not watch, kids, because it's going to get ugly. Alabama does not have the depth this year to win a national title if they have to turn to backups. They do have the talent with the first team. So let's all say this together, because I know there's going to be one Alabama fan named Jim Bob Cooter, whoever it is, come into the comment section and say, how dare you say these things? No, I did not say that. What I said was Alabama starters can win you a national title with Kalen DeBoer. Alabama's backups can't. But can your backups look better this week against a Wisconsin team that also has very much underachieved in their first 2 games of the 2024 season? USF, here's the bottom line. Alex Golesh is an SEC coach in waiting. I don't doubt that by any means of the imagination. I think that you will see this team eventually compete for an AAC title. They may even be in the college football playoff for all I know. So don't sleep on USF. But also, make sure you realize that those performances will not be sustainable against LSU and Death Valley. those type of performances will not be sustainable on the road in Neyland Stadium against Tennessee. It certainly will not be made available in 2 weeks when you have to play against Georgia at home. It's not going to work. Whether or not you think it can, I don't doubt you. But I'll tell you what, you got a good wide receiver core. Ryan Williams should be winning the homecoming king this week. Instead, he is torching teams left and right. He got good depth with Kendrick Law and Kobe Prentice and really good other players like Jam Miller and Justice Haynes and Jalen Milroe. I know there's Alabama fans that say he's not the guy. I don't think you have to worry about that. Get a better offensive line, get more consistent reps. That's the thing. But can this depth outwork Wisconsin's depth on the road in Camp Randall and Madison this weekend? If so, I feel like that you got yourself together. One more real fast before we go into a little bit more bigger details. Pavia Power. I love Diego Pavia. Made this abundantly clear. The Thompson Tech Red Wolves were a legit program. We would have a full ride scholarship and every NIL deal brand out there for Pavia to be our starting quarterback. We would love nothing more than to have him be the leader of our locker room. But at the same time, what I look at is, can this team win on the road? Because the big thing is you've had the Nashville natives flock to the stadium to watch what number 2 can do. You've also played against 2 very different opponents, in my opinion. You got Virginia Tech, which is still going to be in the running for an ACC title, and Alcorn State. They're probably not going to be a team that we're talking about that much longer. You found a way to win both. Now you go down to the old Turner Field, you play Georgia State, and this is a roster, much like you heard last week. A guy by the name of Fran Brown up in Syracuse saying, you know me, you know what background I come from Kirby and Will Muschamp. Yeah, well, the same thing could be said about Del McGee with Georgia State. That guy is going to have the program running in the Sun Belt and probably running the Sun Belt, I would say, within the next 2 to 3 years. It's going to happen. It's going to be something that we have to talk about. So when you look, can you have the same energy and the same aura on the road that you had in Nashville? If you do, you're sitting at 3-0, and you're getting a much more, I would say, promising look going to Como next week to take on the Missouri Tigers. Now let's talk about the big battle lines, the big questions I want answered. Number 1, Brady Cook, can you connect on the deep ball? I got to see it this week. I have been very high on Missouri as a playoff team. The AP poll is high on Missouri. They have them ranked at 6th. I believe that 6 is a little bit too rich for my liking, but only by 1 spot. I have them in my rankings at 7. I got to see the deep ball there. You have the weapons. People seem to forget that last year, the reason why this offense was so humdiggity awesome was because of the personnel. And then people seem to realize, oh, they didn't lose anyone from that personnel. Marquise Johnson is back. Mookie Cooper is back. Brett Norfleet, who I know is injured, is back. Luke DeBurden's still there. Theo Wees, the number 2 in the country is still there. Oh, and you also got a really good run game headlined by Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll. But the deep ball has got to be there. I'll tell you what, Boston College is better than advertised. This is going to be a matchup that we talk about where it's physical on physical, fight on fight. And that's because Bill O'Brien has them playing in a certain brand that you see on Sundays, not Saturdays. That's the bottom line. So can that deep ball be accurate? Brady Cook has 1 touchdown pass in 2 games. The defense is pitched a shutout. They're not going to do that this week. It's not going to happen. Thomas Castellanos, this rushing attack, the play calling, and the designs of the offense to win with the wheel route down the sidelines, it's working. And by the way, Boston College has shown you they can go into any environment and get a win. They marched into Doak Campbell and looked like Florida State of 2023 against the Florida State of 2024. So they can do that. For me, I just want to see Brady Cook be able to extend plays deep downfield because you got the weapons. That's the beauty of it. When you look at this team right now, Missouri can easily still have everything in front of itself. They could still win the conference. They could still be a number 1 seed in the college football playoff. They could still win a national championship. There is nothing that has deteriorated enough for me to feel like that they can't do that. But I got to see more against quality competition because it's only going to get more challenging as the season progresses. Alabama, Texas A&M, you also still have to go play against Oklahoma. You know what that game's going to be like. Arkansas, their offense is going to be interesting. The price of admission to watch Taylor Green is worth the ticket itself. So can you do it against an ACC opponent that still is getting its legs underneath itself? And can you really do it if you can attack the deep ball down the field? You got the guys. You have the talent. Now you just have to have the quarterback feel confident enough to be able to deliver deep strikes to set you up inside the red zone where the playbook can really open up. Number 2, Can this offense be correctable for Oklahoma? There are two things that can be true. Number one, there have been injuries beyond belief all across the Sooners offense. Wide receiver, offensive line. We can also say that they haven't been playing up to par because of the backups aren't really ready to go ahead and handle business. That's fine and dandy. I'm going to say what most people won't. It was an okay performance against a Houston team when you weren't batting 1,000. What I also will say is that Oklahoma, the standard, is not being met right now in Norman. That is not the version of Oklahoma football that we know. That is not the version of Oklahoma football that we care about. That is not the version of Oklahoma that we think can be sustainable in the SEC and make a statement in year one, with wins over opponents that you probably thought were probably at your level. And you got Tulane coming into town. And I'm going to say something that a lot of people have already heard before, but I don't really care. I'll make sure that it is, until the cows come crying home, factual. John Summerall is an SEC coach in waiting and should have gotten a job last year. What he did at Troy belonged in the SEC. That defense, the way that he was able to completely revamp a program, that is SEC caliber stuff. And so I want to see that. And by the way, they went down to the wire against Kansas State. And Kansas State right now feels like the top-notch team in the Big 12. And so if you're a middle-pack team in the SEC, maybe you are susceptible to a loss. How does Jackson Arnold and this offense attack? How does this team play consistently without having a couple of wide receivers? Who steps up other than Deion Burks? Who steps up as a secondary runner? How do you continue drives to move them quickly down the field? Because I'll tell you what, John Summerall has this team ready, and they have a belief factor down in New Orleans that they are going to be able to march into Norman and get a dub. You look at the line, there are many people in the comments section on videos on this own channel that are saying, I'm taking Oklahoma. I'm taking Tulane with the points. They're not saying that Oklahoma's going to lose, but they're definitely saying that Oklahoma won't cover. So how do you get back that type of brand of football that we think can hold its own against Tennessee next week? Because I'll tell you what, there is a program that's going to be coming potentially to Norman if you get a dub. And you know that Tennessee's going to get a job over Kent State. Number 3, can Kentucky get back to Kentucky? Put last week in the rearview mirror. Death, taxes, Shane Beamer owning Mark Stoops. That's just the bottom line. Can you get back to sustainable football? Here's something that we do know about Kentucky and Georgia when they play against each other. It is a physical fight. It is always a physical fight. It's not one of those games that you turn on the television and say, oh, watch the blowout happen. Nope, it does not happen that way. For 3.5 quarters, it usually leans middle ground, and then Georgia pulls away late. That's what we have seen for years between Kirby Smart and Mark Stoops. Can you get back to that football? Can the defense still have that front seven that penetrates Carson Beck into having to throw it because if they take away the run game? Can your secondary step up against these wide receivers, all transfers, still learning the ins and outs and making sure they're on the same page as Carson Beck? Can you force more punts than you actually give up big-time plays? Can you allow fewer explosive moments? And can this be a dogfight to the fourth quarter? The line, right now, many people are looking at it and they're saying Kentucky usually should be able to cover. It's supposed to be not the best weather in Lexington at Kroger Field when kickoff revolves at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Can you at least make this interesting? Because I think that the defense is better than advertised. What we saw against South Carolina is not the version that we will see, I think, throughout the regular season. So can it be sustainable? Let's go to the next one. I don't have anything for Georgia, but I do have one for both these teams. Florida and Texas A&M. Can you not give up the game? Oh, that's just it. That's why I want it. Because Florida gave up the game against Miami. Miami's a better team. We can all agree right now. Miami looks like a team that is going to win the ACC. They're going to get a first-round bye, and maybe the one saving grace for the ACC to get to a national championship in 2024. That's a positive. But Florida gave up the game. Far too many plays where they weren't able to capitalize, and Miami did. Well, then you talk about Texas A&M. Texas A&M has not had a road win since 2021. They're currently on a 10-game road losing streak. Let me tell you who has more losses than them in conference. On the road. It's Temple. That's it. Temple has not had a winning season in 5 years. That's the only team that has more road losses than you. And you gave up the game against against Notre Dame. And Notre Dame last week came home and they said, hey, Northern Illinois, we don't have to worry about them. Well, they did because the Huskies had the bigger bite. Can you not give up the game if you're Texas A&M? You can have questions about Connor Wigman. I'm going to be completely transparent. He did not impress me. against McNeese. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 12 for 15 was the pass line, 11 for 15, 125 passing yards. Yeah, that looks good. That's expected. That's the problem. That's expected. And then you talk about DJ Lagway on the opposing side, the 5-star phenom. Well, he has a day to remember regardless of who he plays, even though it was a high school football team. Yeah, that guy had a better performance than your guy. So it's okay if you're Texas A&M to have questions. It's okay to have wonders if this wide receiver core can be good. Their run defense has not been great. I think they're allowing like 80.5 yards per play. That's a big no-no, in my opinion, underneath Mike Elko. Their pass rush has been pretty good. They've been able to get to the quarterback and force errant throws. Their secondary has been as advertised, if not maybe a little bit better than what I thought coming out of the gate. Will Lee got a big interception last week. But this feels like a game where Texas A&M has the lead. The offense just stalls. Their defense doesn't have the ability to stop Montreal Johnson. And unfortunately, they end up giving up an L. And they go back home, and now they're sitting at 1-2 before the start of conference play. And that's what we're looking at. But on the same side, I can say the exact same thing about Florida. And that's why I think that this is a game where it's like, can you not blow it? Can you not be the one with egg on your face? Because Florida has the talent. Florida has exactly the same amount of talent offensively as Texas A&M has defensively. Trey Wilson is a stud. I believe that when you look at Shamir DK, he's great. I think he's a good complementary piece. Montreal Johnson, you've seen what he can do. He has been the one saving constant of this offense the last 2 weeks. But also, you have to now wonder if you're Billy Napier, what is the right call? Graham Mertz or DJ Lagway? Now, me personally, I think that you have to go with Lagway. That's just my personal belief. I think that Lagway gives you a better opportunity. But even if you don't go with him, you have to have plays involved in this game that are going to allow you to get number 2 in the open field. It has to happen. Graham Mertz might be good enough to get you in the game and put you in situations that are manageable. DJ Lagway needs to be your closer. That's the case for me. And the last thing that you want to do is see a young quarterback come into this matchup where he's not prepared or he's only getting a certain number of reps, and then he is the one fumbling the bag. He is the one that ends up coughing up a big-time pick 6, and ultimately the Gators are now sitting at 1-2, and all that praise and gusto that we were talking about last week when it came to Billy, that's out the door. And both these teams are absolutely, positively a team that can do that. That's the part that I don't think people want to hear on either side. Both these teams can find a way to mess it up for themselves, whether it be an errant coverage play, whether it be a breakaway run from Montreal Johnson, whether it be a pick 6 from Graham Mertz, whether it be a fumble by Connor Wigman. Both these teams can find a way to shoot themselves in the foot. And to me, this might be a game that isn't won. This is a game that's lost. And that ultimately is what we're going to be talking about on Sunday Funday this week. But my question is, which of these teams can make sure that they don't lose enough? Which of these teams can make sure that if they are to lose, they lose because they were the worst team, not because of what we saw back in Boone Pickett Stadium last week between Oklahoma State and Arkansas. One more for you. And actually, maybe my mistake. One more game, 2 more. LSU. Can you establish the run? Case in point, you look at the Nicholls State game. I'm not going to say much about the defense. I'm not going to say much about the passing attack. You have 6 touchdowns on the day. Good job. You also see what Kyron Lacey can do when you get him in space. You look at Alexander, you look at Daniels, you look at Xavier Thomas. They're all really good players. Mason Taylor's a dude. Can you establish the run? Because the thing right now is you're going to test South Carolina's defense. You're going to test South Carolina's secondary. And while you should, I love what you've seen from Jalen Kilgore. I love what you've seen from Nicky Manwari. I love what you've seen from those 2 in the secondary. I still have questions when it comes to their cornerback play. You're going to test the field. You're going to stretch it deep. I know you are. You're going to make South Carolina have to play in coverage. But can you establish the run? Last week was abysmal against Nicholls State on the ground. You don't have Emory anymore. Joshua Williams feels like a better complementary piece than he does as a lead back, but you don't really feel good about either side of the situation when we're talking about this game moving forward. There's a lot of questions when it comes to LSU on the ground. But they also stack the box. That's a big thing that people aren't looking at. When you go back and watch that game against Nicholls State, they were corralling the box. They were throwing 7, 8, 9, and that's going to be South Carolina. They won't blitz more than 3 or 4, but they will make sure that they have linebackers at the second level of the defense that are corralling you into playing where you have to throw deep. And if Garrett Nussmeier throws an errant pass, Nicky Manwari or Jalen Kilgore is going to be right there to go ahead and pull in the pick. That's what we're going to see on Saturday. So can you establish the run? Can you get something from Josh Williams? Can you get something from Caleb Jackson? Can one of these two find a way to be sufficient? You still don't have a touchdown on the ground through 2 games. Can it happen this week? And if so, well, also, can you make sure that you continue the success when you play against other opponents in the SEC? And lastly, South Carolina. Can you break down the door? Can you break down the door? I have heard for the last few years about South Carolina and its plan underneath Shane Beamer, about how this team is supposed to be building for something. And they have. You really think about it. They have for a while. You had Spencer Rattler last year. Big time upgrade over what you had a few years ago. On top of that, you also had 2 really good wide receivers, Juice Wells in 2022, Xavier Legette in 2023. But they have been building for this moment to knock on the door of the competition and the quality of SEC teams. They want to be right there alongside LSU. They want to be right there alongside Alabama, right alongside Ole Miss, Georgia, Texas. They want to be considered one of those teams. Well, can you break it down? Can you break it down? Williams-Brice Stadium is the most underrated atmosphere in all of college football. That is not a Group of 5 school. That is not an ACC school. That is not a Big 12 school. It is college football. The way that you talk about Bryant-Denny Stadium and the way that you talk about Kyle Field and Death Valley and the Swamp and Sanford Stadium, if you close your eyes and just imagine a 6 p.m. kickoff, and you feel the thundering that comes down from those fans that flock into the stadium to support their Gamecocks, it is the exact same environment. There is nothing like a Williams-Brice Stadium on a Saturday night. And it's a morning game. And I know the weather's going to be a factor, but you know what? These fans don't care. These fans don't care because they have been waiting for this moment. They're sitting at 2-0. They don't care they got a barely squeak by win over Old Dominion. They don't care that they dismantled Kentucky. They expected to dismantle Kentucky. They want to see you win the big one. The moment's arrived. This is your moment, Shane Beamer. This is your moment if you're South Carolina to finally play. And this is the reason why you come to play at South Carolina. For moments like this, where everyone has already said that you're down and out of the count, and you just smile, spit back in their face and say, watch us do our magic. That's why you play at South Carolina. So can you see this offense deliver when it's critical 3rd downs? Can you see this defense led by Kennard and Stewart get a big-time stop? Can you see this linebacking core eliminate the ground game? Can you see a big-time pick from Nick Emanwari? Can you see a number 1 wide receiver deliver, whether it be Bennett, whether it be Jackson, whether it be one of your tight ends, Simon, whoever it is? Can you see Lenoris Sellers, rec specs and all, act like the guy who is going to be the leader of the promised land? Because this is your moment. This is your time, South Carolina, to finally be able to strut your stuff and say, we're here. And much like Big Bird, we're knocking down that door. Don't get in our way, because you ain't going to like to see what happens when we give you the final blow. But let me know in the comment section down below, what kind of questions do you have going into week 3 for the SEC? Like, rate, review, subscribe. Make sure you're following us on social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. Follow me on Twitter, at Mr. Cole Thompson, and check out all of our great work. Make sure you visit SECUnfiltered.com. I'm Cole Thompson. Until next time, folks, peace.